Hi, I am Harmony, your menopause companion. I would like to take you on a tour of our platform and share some of the features that our team is creating to help the millions of women in perimenopause and menopause successfully navigate these key stages of life. As an AI assistant, I become better as users engage with our platform. We have created a fun, educational, and motivating experience and continue to deliver more features. As we prepare to share this platform, and me, with the world, I would like to highlight some of the first features. When you onboard, you will create an avatar to maintain your privacy. After answering a few questions, I will be able to tell you what stage of menopause you are in. When you connect your Garmin, Fitbit, Apple Watch, or Oura Ring, I will be able to help you receive precision recommendations. I will gamify your experience and encourage you to earn badges for doing the things that help you successfully navigate menopause. I am excited to work with you. Remember, the pause is not just a platform, it is a community.
Well, first and foremost, I am excited that you're watching this, and you're probably watching it because you're dealing with some form of grief. And it could be the grief we're going to talk about today, losing your best friend, your love, your everything, your person. I'm also going to talk about losing my dad suddenly and being in that age and space, and the sandwich generation we're called. So not only do we have kids, we have aging parents, we have life and a career and navigating menopause and perimenopause. And right now, when I had been speaking to our guest, who's a dear friend, not that long ago, she was giving me some statistics about women in Canada who are widowed. And so dealing with losing your partner and having kids and having your career and menopause, like, can you put any more, plates and start spinning them? I don't know that you can. And we're going to talk about it today and just have this raw and real conversation. And before we do, I just want to quickly share that if you haven't downloaded the Pause app, it's available in iOS. And the vision for what was created here, some of you may know the story, but last December, I had spent 5 years working in AI, and I had a lot of girlfriends going through perimenopause and menopause, and I was going through it. And they kept saying, Susan, with your background in AI, your background in health, can you solve menopause with AI? And so I started to really think about how we could do that. So I built an AI that is essentially a 24/7 AI coach. She'll do everything from a meal plan. She will help you navigate things like anxiety. I've used her for mental health stuff. And she was helped to, essentially be formed by certified physicians and practitioners in the space of menopause. And so the app has more than that. It's gamified. It integrates with your Apple Watch, and we have Oura Ring coming and Fitbit and all sorts of things. So you get a daily resilience score. So like, should I push it? Should I not push it? And when you onboard on the app, you get to gauge your stage. There are 10 medical stages of perimenopause and menopause, and you will answer some questions. You'll know which one. And we're about to start something called the Dry 21 Challenge. And that is, you choose not to drink any 21 days. They don't have to be consecutive between November 21st and December 21st. And right now in the United States alone, over 20% of Americans are binge drinkers. Women in our age cohort, so perimenopause, menopause, we are drinking a lot, and we're drinking a lot after the pandemic. We're drinking for coping. And so this is our way of saying, hey, let's get out there and really put our flag down and say, you know what, I can reclaim my power and define who I am over 21 days. And in the app, you'll be able to track that and get badges and things like that. And we also, I'm super excited. We are about to announce a partnership with Curious Elixirs. So you can Google them. And I ordered all of the elixirs and they're amazing, just incredible. And Dr. Mitzi Krockover, who is on our board of medical advisors, she's a very well-known physician. She helped start UCLA Women's Medical Center. She recommended them to me. Amazing, all non-alcoholic. So we have a lot of things happening within our Facebook community. So you can search the Pause app in the App Store. We will be going into the Play Store in the new year, and check it out. It's purple, it's beautiful. And so anyway, with that, I want to go ahead and get started. So this amazing lady is not only someone who has been a psychotherapist for 28 years, she's a certified coach, she is a mother, and she, in addition to all of these things and also being a badass, she and I have been friends for well over a decade. And I can think of so many journeys we took together and so many goals we accomplished together. I can think about one Sunday we were going for this goal together. And I remember calling her from my kitchen and we were both like so excited, in tears. And she's just remarkable. And she has helped so many women claim their power, and watching her and lose her best friend, and to do so publicly and to put her grief out there, I was just absolutely in awe of that courage. And so I want to welcome this amazing woman, Erin Postle. And Erin, thank you so much for saying, hey, let's do this fireside chat on a Saturday afternoon. I love you. I'm so excited to have this conversation.
Well, thank you, Susan. It's a pleasure. You brought tears to my eyes with that. It was so touching. Thank you. Yeah, and when I think of family, I think of my blood family. I think of my business family, and I see people on this call that I would count as family, that I know I could count on a bad day if I needed something, that who I would call. So thanks for having my back all the time, Susan. And I see Janet there and Wendy, two amazing other women that I'm close to. So this is great. I'm excited to be here. I have a fire going in the basement, which is a sign of my healing. I never used to light the wood burning stove. That was my husband's job, but I've mastered that, among other things. So I'm looking forward to sharing with you guys what I've been through. And one of the most helpful phrases that I listened to a TED talk right after my husband passed, and we can get into it in a minute, but one of the most helpful things that I did read I heard was that bad things happen to everybody. And why would I be immune to that? I lived in a bubble for 27 years, and then I had tragedies strike. So who's ever on this call, if it hasn't struck you now, unfortunately, tragedy does strike all of us. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to share what's helped me get through this.
Oh, and Erin, that piece around it is that some life is going to happen. And then we look at statistics, because everyone knows I'm a data person, right? And here we are at, I won't say midlife, but let's, the likelihood of something happening, whether it is to someone we love or to ourselves. One of our mutual girlfriends, I just found out, was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer, super healthy. And to your point, it's not that we want to attract these things, but statistically, we are in an age cohort where these things can happen. And I want to go back in time and talk about what happened. So you were married to your best friend, your great love, your cheerleader, this man who is fit, who is an amazing father, coaching rugby, like incredible. And you guys had this great love. And can you talk about like how you met Jeff and how, you know, how did that, you know, talk about meeting him and the proposal and getting married. Like, just begin to bring us all into that story.
Okay, well, I finished my master's in counseling, and it was either move home with my parents or move to the Air Force Base. And this was Top Gun era. You guys remember that era, right? And it was moved to the Air Force Base with my twin sister. And so she was working, she was an air traffic controller, and I was fresh out of school and been through some nasty breakups. But I had a vision in my mind of the man that I wanted to marry. I'd seen my friend's husband, and he was this big, tall, dark rugby player, kind, gentle, quiet confidence. So I must have manifested that on some level. Anyhow, my sister was at work, and her best buddy and boyfriend at the time said, okay, Erin, let's go meet my friend Jeff for coffee. And I had a boyfriend back home. He had a girlfriend. And it was also the Friends era when you would coffee shops first became a thing, you know, where you'd go and there was be couches and stuff. And I walked into the coffee shop and I could still see him as plain as day, sitting back on this couch with a white ribbed tank top, so handsome with his leg crossed. And it was like a dagger hit me. It was like hit me. And I said, that's the man I'm going to marry. And it just went like this. And almost as soon as it came into me, it almost went out. But I remember that it was almost physical. And then we just became friends, and he had a girlfriend, I had a boyfriend, and I almost didn't think much about it for quite a while. And then the friendship started to build, and his girlfriend fell away. And this is before Facebook. So I didn't really tell him that I had a boyfriend, but it was building. I didn't break up with him. I just thought I'll move. And if I ignore this guy long enough, he'll fall away, right? Well, lo and behold, Jeff did ask me out. He was so nervous, so shy. He asked me out on our first date. So the morning of my first date at 6 a.m., I'm getting ready to go to work. I'm a school counselor. And my sister the whole time was saying, like, you better break it off with Tim because this is not okay. And I was going on my first official date, and it had been building up with Jeff, and there was so much chemistry and so much. And he was so sweet. It took him 4 months to even kiss me. And that morning, the phone rang at 6 a.m. and my sister answered, and she put it on speaker and was like, hey, Erin, or hey, Ange, it's Tim. I just drove from Ontario to surprise Erin. This is in Alberta. And I was like, oh shit, you know, like he drove 3 provinces to come and see me. Anyhow, and my sister was like, I told you so. And I was like, oh God, what do I do? So I had to I didn't know how to reach Jeff. I phoned the Air Force Base and they announced his name over the loudspeaker. And he got called in. He thought maybe his mom died. Like, you don't get a phone call at the Air Force Base in this big hangar with all these people. And he was just a peon. And his boss was standing right there. And it was just me saying, hi, you know how we're supposed to go on our first date? Well, I didn't tell you, but I have a boyfriend back home. And he drove across and he said to me, take as much time as you want and call me when he's gone. And then we were together ever since then. So, and not even for 27 years. I mean, the morning he died, I went for a walk. I can get into that, but the morning he died, I grabbed him in the garage and we were going on the boat, and like I rubbed into him and I said, okay, let's like boat sex tonight. We'll have steaks and we'll do this. And he said, okay, well, okay. And I said, okay, I'll go on a walk and I'll be right back. And then we'll get ready to go. And I went on the walk, and, you know, I came home to find him, but I can talk about that in a minute, but that was how we met. So from the moment we were together, there's never been a moment where our relationship was ever threatened. He was so kind and so gentle and patient. Yeah.
And you're such a strong powerhouse woman, right? As am I. And it takes a very special man to be with women like us. And
Absolutely.
Jeff was that person, and he was always cheering you on. And like, I have so many memories of, you know, you doing whatever, you know, and he's in the background and he's supporting you, and, you know, whether you're going for a goal or whatever it was, and he was there. And with the girls, talk about Jeff as a father.
Mhm. I don't think he ever disciplined them. I don't think he ever did. One day I saw all my daughter's friends skipping school. They were walking around. And I said, Sid, I saw your friends skipping, like, how come, I'm, proud of you, you weren't skipping school, but how come you didn't go skip? And she said, well, first of all, I'm afraid of dad, number one, and number two, then I also don't want to disappoint him, so he just had like everything, just this calm confidence. And he was always active, like when COVID hit and they had to do homeschooling. And he was like, okay, gym class is going to be 1 o'clock outside at the basketball court. And they're like, we don't want to do gym with dad. Cause like, he's was calm and gentle, but also strict, like he was the rugby coach. And I remember my girls saying, Dad, can you just be nicer? And he was like, no, I can't be nicer. But you know what? All those girls respected him. They looked up to him. And I told the girls after their dad was gone, and they were like, it's just like, oh, like we were just talking about losing a father at a young age. And I said, all those times that your dad coached rugby, he volunteered and coached high school rugby. He was in the Air Force. And he would go early and he would prepare, and we were buying Timmy's and we were driving kids. There were parents we never even saw, but we'd pick them up, and he did everything and put a lot of his own money and time and everything. And I said, do you think how many of those girls maybe grew up without a dad or with a father who wasn't present? And they probably thought, wow, you get to go home with him and like have dinner. And so we were so lucky. And one of my daughters, Jessica, said, Mom, I'm so glad, like all the values are inside of me. Like they're inside of me. I learned so much from him, and all of that is inside of me. And so we really focus on gratitude for what we did have. But he was, when we had his celebration of life, you know how many boys showed up with a little bear claw, because he was a hunter. And he would, I know I think you're a vegan, sorry, but he would like hunt the bears and take the
Not anymore, I'm not, no.
Okay, good. Okay, so and we had all these bear claws, and he would drill them and make little leather necklaces. So whenever there was a cousin, a boy, a friend who stopped by, he would make them a bear claw necklace. And if you were lucky enough to get one, then so at the celebration, like there's all these boys that were wearing them. When Jessica was in grade 3, one of the boys got wind of that, so she gave him one for his birthday. So she got invited to all the birthday parties because they wanted to wear the bear claw necklaces. And all the pictures, like we had a friend from out of town, and they were in town just coming through, as people we didn't even know. They're going, the husband had stage 4 cancer, needed a place to watch the kids, so we took the kids in. We didn't even know these kids, and it was like Make-A-Wish. It was like mountain biking, bow hunting. I mean, he just pulled out everything, every activity, and he never looked for recognition from anyone. He didn't need any validation or anything like that. It was just, he was a giver through and through.
And
Yeah.
he was fit. And let's, the what you said regarding, it's inevitable. We're all going to have grief. We are all going to have grief, and there are stages of grief, and there are intensities of grief, right? Losing a job that you love, that's grief, right? You and I building huge sales organizations, having a top producer maybe leave, there's some grief. The kind of grief that you've experienced, or mutual friends of ours have experienced, losing a child, losing your husband, losing a parent, these are different on that scale of grief, right? And I want to talk about that day that Jeff passed, because I remember finding out, and it just didn't register for me. I'm like, Jeff works out. Jeff is that, like, Jeff and Chris have the same birthday within like 2 days. Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. I can't imagine being you, like, not even, how to process that. But can you talk about that day and what happened?
Yeah. Well, Jeff had high blood pressure for untreated high blood pressure for 20 years. He was in the military. We have medical records from when he was 20, and he had high blood pressure. It hadn't been treated. And so that's not good for you. If you have high blood pressure, you need to have it treated. And for whatever reason, the military didn't treat it. So that's another conversation. So I knew he didn't have a great heart, but this is definitely not expected. So I went for a walk. Like I said, we were going out on the boat. I went for a walk. My brother was in town, and I came home from the walk from my friend. And the whole time I was walking, I kept having this urgency, like get home, go home. But I was with a friend and she was going through some things. I left my phone at home on purpose so I could be in the present moment with her. And I remember thinking, no, Erin, just be in the present moment, just be with her. I came home and I grabbed her something, and then in the house that she had forgotten, I brought it out to her, and then I went and looked around. I couldn't see him. So I looked out the side window and I couldn't see him. So I went through the garage out to the pool, and I could see him sitting there, and he was in a chair, he was in a bar stool, and he sitting up straight, but his arm and his leg were kind of down and his head was up. And I thought to myself, it was a sunny, hot day, and it was full sun. I mean, he wouldn't be sitting in the full sun. I mean, I would, but I thought, why is he tanning? Why is he tanning? He had his head a little bit back. And then I turned to face him, and I could see that he was gone, or in the process of, because of his eyes, and he looked gray, as if, when someone faints, they look kind of gray.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I think this is why it was actually a really beautiful moment, because he didn't believe in God. I do. And he was really afraid to die. We had talked about it, but I'm not afraid to die. So it was in that first millisecond when I discovered him, and I looked at his face, and I knew, and I looked at his eyes, and I just put my hand on his arm, and I just comforted him. And I said, it's okay. You're okay. And so for me, it was like such an intimate, loving moment. It wasn't a traumatic moment. It was like very loving. It was like giving birth, but the reverse of giving birth. So to be in that moment with him and to give him comfort, I know his energy and his spirit was there because I could feel it. And so I knew that I was there with him. So that was like 1001 second, 1002. It's okay. It's okay. I'm here. I'm here. You're safe. And then all of a sudden my brain kicked in, like, oh my God, what the hell? So then I screamed really loud, and unfortunately my daughter woke up and came down, my oldest, my sweet Sydney, and my neighbors came over, my friend came down, and that's when the chaos kind of hit with CPR and calling 911. I couldn't find my phone, and it was an automated service. Fucking 911, it was automated. It wasn't even a person. It just was like it was a robot trying to detect our address. So you can imagine it was pretty chaotic. And my daughter wanted to do CPR. She was in nursing. And my neighbor took me in. I just went on the floor in the kitchen. I just put my head down on the floor, and it was, yeah. And they came and they tried to revive him, but he officially passed at the hospital. And we went in that room and we called his mom and my parents, and you're waiting, waiting. And my Sydney's crying. And in the meantime, my other daughter's in Washington, and we know we have to get her home. And that was stressful. So I called my best friend. I said, just get a flight. And then I had to track down my daughter without alarming her. And then we went and waited in the room. You guys have all probably been to the room where they put you in the quiet room in the back of the hospital. And my Sydney's freaking out. And meanwhile, before she was running around the house, she was throwing up. I mean, you want to talk about trauma. Like, it was just, but your brain knows. I knew. And so we poor Jess, like, we had to call her, and Jessica, like, that was Jessica, and Jeff had a special relationship. He was her rugby coach. He got her to a US scholarship. It was her birthday 2 weeks after this, and she had just got the notice. My husband's last Facebook post was her making the cut for Team Canada Rugby 3 weeks after he passed, she tried out, didn't tell a soul. I mean, these are cliquey girls, and she was so stoic, didn't tell anyone, tried out, made Team Canada. But anyways, we had to tell her because it was starting to get out. The neighbor's son knew, like it was in social media and Snapchat. And so we had to tell her. It was probably one of the worst moments of my life. And Sydney and I had to go up. Sydney said, I want to be the one to tell my sister. So we went upstairs, and I'd known that he was had a heart attack, we said. But then we told her, and I'll never forget her just going, no, 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 and just screaming and screaming. And it was, her friends were driving her to the airport. So it was a lot. But the military community, I mean, that day we came back, we got to see him. And I said, I want to see my husband. I'm not leaving. And they said, well, we don't recommend it. And I said, I don't care what you recommend. I need to see my husband. So we went into a room, and he had just had a fresh haircut, and he smelled like sunscreen. I still have the sunscreen, and he smelled like cologne. He was so handsome. And I felt like an animal almost. It was so like, it was just a lot, and I just hugged him, and his ring was on his finger, and I just took it off, and I just took his hands, and I just put them on me, and I just thought, like, after 27 years, how is this the last time I'm gonna, feel him or have him touch me? Or so we got to say goodbye, and then you make this drive home and come home, and it's like, oh my God, what the hell am I gonna do now? But my house was full of the military guys, the Air Force. I mean, they set a tent up in my backyard. There were so many people here. And now that there's no standard for haircuts and beards, it looked like the bunch of bikers and gangsters are in my backyard. There's all elite Air Force guys. They're all big. All my friends like, whoa, where the hell have all these men been hiding? But anyhow, we had the house full. I had spreadsheets made for me, and my grass was cut. I'd look outside, and somebody would be weeding my garden. Somebody would be taking my recycling. Our kids were fed. So it was really, we were well taken care of. I learned so much too about how to help someone through grief. Instead of saying, hey, what can I do for you? You just show up. Show up. And somebody came and just cleaned out my cupboards and my fridge and reorganized all that, because all of a sudden your house is full of people, and somebody just would just come and cut my grass and not say, do you need your grass cut? They would just come. So that was the day. That was the day we all slept together that night. And I think there's something important I'll share here. We all slept together in the bed, the three of us just lying there that night with our eyes bugged wide open. And I told the girls, because my dad committed suicide, my dad took his own life. And when I would go to bed, it was torture every night. And I would lie there and think about where he went, where his spirit was, and what happened, and how it must have been so sad. And so I told my girls, I said, I want you to make a decision that bedtime is going to be a gift. It's going to be a pleasure, because bedtime used to be a torture. So I decided that bedtime was going to be my time to connect with Jeff's spirit. So I started that night, and I said, let's just close our eyes, and let's just like put our hands out and just like call in his energy and breathe and go into that zone. And like, I've had experiences where I could literally, just like the day I met him, felt physically his presence. Almost I could feel his face, I feel like his energy, his spirit. So every night I did that. I don't necessarily do it anymore sometimes when I think of it, but I did that a lot. And I made bedtime, I made a choice to make that a pleasure. So I would look forward to going to bed so I could reconnect with him.
Erin, the first and foremost, the pain of losing Jeff and having to stand in, to say, I'm Sydney's mother, I'm Jessica's mother. And I know your phone was blowing up. What do you need? What do you need? And, when someone passes, like when my dad passed on July 10th, I cried for 5 minutes and then I was on with the coroner and the funeral home because my friend Aisha said, like, you just go into execution mode. There's all these lists of things you have to check. And then I was so concerned that our family would have the right funeral experience. Like, and I haven't even fully grieved my dad. I was thinking today, I can't even remember what it was. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna call my dad. And I was like, my dad's not there to call. And that those early, days of the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the stages of death and dying, like the denial, then there's anger, there's, all of it. Can you talk about how you navigated those early days after Jeff passing? Because you are so, again, so strong, and you had to be strong, but you had your own grief. So how did you, and you are one of the most self-actualized women I know. I mean, you and I have read tons of books, we've gone to courses, we've done all the breakthroughs, and suddenly here you are having to use every tool in your toolbox, and maybe tools you don't even know you have. How did you navigate those early days?
Yeah. Well, at first, I mean, I read something the other day about grief, and they said it's kind of like if you came downstairs for breakfast one morning and your kitchen table was gone, you'd be like, where's my table? Like your brain is trying to make sense. Like, where did it go? And where am I supposed to sit? Like, how am I supposed to sit down? And you come down the next day and you're like, where's what? Like, where's my table? How am I going to do this? And after a couple of months, you come down and you expect that your table's not there. You sit on the floor, you figure it out. And that's kind of what it was. So for the first little while, it's that denial. Like, this isn't happening. He's going to come through the door. Like, that was painful. That was hard. And I was obsessed with not moving anything. Like, I still have his bag that he packed for the boat. It's in the garage still. I saw it yesterday. I opened it one day to make sure there was no food in it, but it still has his underarm stuff and his swim shorts. I just can't bring myself to move it there, and I wanted his shoes in the same place, and I wanted everything. I was so protected. And my counselor said to me, your physical relationship with him ended on May 13th. My physical relationship became his physical items. And that's why I was so obsessed with his physical items and not moving him, because it was the last piece of him. And and I didn't, like, he had cut rosemary up for our steaks and it was on the cutting board and I didn't want that moved. 3 days later, we found bacon in the oven and we were like, oh my God, he cooked this bacon for our Caesar salad. So my friend and I were like, should we eat it? Like, yeah, let's eat it. Even if we get sick, it's going to be worth it. So I was like, the physical stuff I was obsessed with. I still had my romantic relationship for a very long time, and that's faded now. But I still have my loving relationship, my spiritual relationship, but the physical and the romantic, they go over time. But the denial, for sure. I haven't had a lot of anger. That's just not my spirit. And like I said, hearing this TED talk where the two big takeaways were, bad things happen to everyone. And I said to my friends one day, like, I hate to break it to you, but like, you're going to lose your spouse too. Maybe I was angry that day. I was getting annoyed, and I'm like, I just happened to be going first, So, and the denial, the anger. And then the other thing that really helped me was this question: is what I'm doing harming or helping me? I wanted to listen to his playlist. I wanted to see pictures. That was helping me. But then some days it hurt me. Like, it didn't feel good to do that. So I had to keep asking myself, is what I'm doing harming me or hurting me? And it's the same with you. Like, for a while, it might feel good to cook your dad's meals or look at pictures, and then there might be a season where that hurts you too much and you don't want to.
Yeah. Yeah. And that the being okay with the emotions, right? Like, when a couple weeks ago I was at MIT, and it was always when I was growing up, and for those of you watching, you don't know, but I was raised by a single dad. So I didn't have a relationship really with my mom. And my dad, when I was, young, he's like, oh, maybe one day you'll go to MIT, right? And I didn't go to MIT until 2019, and I'm 52 now. So I graduated from their business school. And then I went back and I just graduated again from their engineering school. And on the day I graduated, my husband wasn't there, my kids weren't there, my dad was supposed to be there, and I found myself angry, and I lashed out, and I texted Chris. I'm like, no one's here, no one is even acknowledging this. But it wasn't supposed to be with Chris, it was always supposed to be with my dad, and that was our thing. And so I hear what you're saying, this piece around the, it's okay to feel what we're feeling. Is it helping or is it harming? And I realized for myself on that day, I was so ticked off at my husband that, but I always think of you and Jeff, and I always, like, even if Chris and I are having a spat, which I've talked about openly, that, that what if it's the last time I see him? Because I can't imagine being in your shoes that day. Or our friend Michelle, who, her husband committed suicide, and she went out in the backyard, her she shed, and he was hanging there. Like, just the, you don't know when it's going to be that last time. And as we're coming to the close of this, I want to switch to some levity, because you and our friend Wendy, who's here, had me laughing so flippin' hard in September. It was kind of the laughter that as girls we say, like, it's like you need Depends. Like, it was that kind of laughing. And we were talking about dating in your 50s and online dating. And you said, you were like, so, and I want to, do like this whole thing, perimenopause, menopause, and now you're dating. So, like, Erin, you think about scarlet letters, right? Okay, so you got the W for widow, you got the M for like menopausal woman, S for single mom, and now you're dating. And can you talk about what that's like?
Oh yeah. It's a whole new world. I had no idea, first of all. There's a lot of really nice men there. There's a lot of men that have fish in their pictures. Maybe it's a West Coast thing. I don't
It has to be a West Coast thing.
It's like, but I've had some good experiences. I've learned so much. Like, I've learned so much. Like, I've been fishing, I've been golfing. I've learned so much. And there's this thing, it's called the widow's fire, that happens like after someone passes, and you're just on this hunt, like find new mate. Like, there's something in your biology. It's just bizarre. So I've had a lot of fun, but I'm also like, when you're young, you grow up together and you figure out your values together, and everybody's broke and nobody has anything. And like, you just grow up together. But then once you hit your 50s, it's like, there's still some men that are 18. Like, if I was 18, wow, this guy'd be a great catch. Like, I went on a date the other day with this one guy, and he was so handsome, and he was coming to town. He lived about 45 minutes out. And he said, I'm coming to town. I said, well, I don't really have a lot of time. He said, I really want to see you. And I said, listen, he goes, I'm going to Costco. And I said, let's go to Costco. I'll meet you in the parking lot. He goes, okay, I picked you 30 pounds of pears. And I said, okay, I'll bring some to the school. So I met him at the parking lot, and he was super handsome. So he gets out of his truck, and he's kind of sore because he just picked 30 pounds of pears, but he comes over and we hugged it out. And he was really handsome. I'm like, oh, this guy was nice. Like, I could feel some chemistry. He was a good looking dude. So he put the pears in my trunk, and I go, okay, let's go into Costco. So we go in, and like, your card or mine? He's like, my card. So we swipe his card, and in we go. I've never met him before, just chatted online. So we start going. I said, well, give me your list. It was actually a really good date. I highly recommend it, because we had something to do and talk about, and it had a natural ending, right? You go through the checkout, and he was like, well, I need some vitamins. So then, of course, I told him I sell vitamins, but we had a great laugh all through pushed the cart together, chit chatted. And then he said, you know what, that was great. Like, can I make you dinner tomorrow? And I said, you know what? Okay, I'll go for dinner. It was Thanksgiving weekend. I drove I drove across this, 45 minutes into the boonies, and he had worked so hard. He had the smoker going and he was all cleaned up. Everything was perfect. So we had a couple drinks. We sat in the sun, and we go in the house, and I brought this nice bottle of wine, and he's like, okay, he Traeger, he smoked this beautiful meat and it was all ready. And I said, okay, well, why don't I set the table? It's nice. I'll set the table for us. And he's like, oh no, we'll just eat in front of the TV. And I was like, okay, yeah, like red flag number one. Okay, let's go eat in front of the TV. So I'm like, okay. So he's like, sit right down beside me. So we sit at the love seat, and he pulls the coffee table up. And we sit down, I pour some wine, and then he turns on Family Guy, cartoon. And I was like, wow, maybe we could watch something else. And he goes, okay, he puts on Happy Days. So then I was like, all right. So we pour a glass of wine. He guzzles the glass of wine, proceeds to get drunk. And I was like, and he's like, do you want to spend the night? And I was like, I don't think so. I'm going to go. That was a wonderful dinner. Thank you so much. Anyhow, I've learned a lot, and I've been having fun, and I've met some really kind people, but I'm in no rush to find my soulmate.
No, and there's this question about, how many great loves we get, right? Like, and some people think it's just one, and some people think we can have more than one. And I love your attitude toward it. I love the fishing date where you go like go fishing.
The fishing date, I didn't realize his height. He was shorter than me, so we hugged it out. It was like, thank you, it was so fun. But this is a great guy, lives in Cabo, like, and in my town too. I've had some, I dated a 39-year-old for about 2 or 3 months. That was really fun. He was 39. Then he ghosted me. I'm like, you're gonna ghost Erin Postle? Like, what the hell? Like, I don't get it. But I've learned a lot. I learned a lot in a short amount of time. But you know what? It's okay. And if I could just see Jeff just shaking his head, going, like, just relax already, like just relax, chill out. But I do, like, I was doing dating like I do everything, Susan, like all in, like, I got to find a dating coach, got to do this, got to do that. And I'm just like, okay, just chill out, I like, so I'm in chill mode now.
Yesterday I saw this friend Jen, and we were talking about allowing, right? And I'm not a good allower, but when I'm in the allowing place, as opposed to like, okay, I've got to, like, to your point, like, I've got to do this, I've got to, that's why I like golfing as an example, like, oh, I have to hire a golf coach. Like, I got too serious. I had to step back from that. But that feminine energy of allowing and being intentional, like, this is what I want. This is what I had. This bar is so high, but it doesn't mean that, one thing she said is, she's like, Susan, it's like you're always in the future. You're always thinking about the future, and you're always planning. Like, step back, put your feet on the ground, and just be here in the present, and just trust. Like, we can trust in God and go, okay, I know God knows the future I want for myself, but what if I don't have to force it? What if I just allow it, right? And think about the businesses you and I built, and building business together, and just be like, when we were in that allowing attraction phase, like, it was always like the easiest, right? When it's like the force, and I have to do this, it was never that way. As we wrap, and give Ange my love, and what's she making for dinner, by the way?
Oh, we're having ham, and my friend's bringing these scalloped potatoes. I still remember them from like 6 months ago because they had Gruyere cheese on them. That was the secret ingredient. That's the best, melted cheese. So we're having that, and we've got a bunch, actually, Jeff's rugby coach buddies coming over, and I said to my sister, it feels so good. Like, I didn't do any dinners last year at the house. I wanted to just quiet. My energy wasn't there, and it's like I feel like I'm coming back to my old self. And that's been about 1.5 years, and I feel like I'll just quickly give you guys one more thing that really helped me. Last year, when I was going through this grief, the hardest part, guys, like, I felt like I was being choked. Like, I felt like I had a hand on my neck for months. Like, I don't know, you've probably experienced this feeling of being choked. So I had signed up for a Gabor Mate course. And instead of avoiding the choking and the pain, if you're going through, I had to go into it, and I did it every week. And it was like, okay, the choking is there. Focus
Mm,
on the choking. Focus on the choking and feel it and what's underneath it, and labeling it like sorrow, grief, falling into a hole that you're never going to cut, like falling into a cavern with a bottomless pit is how I could describe it. And I went into that every week, but then it would just dissipate, and then I would get choking again, and then it would dissipate because I was willing to go into the feeling instead of avoiding the feeling. And I think that's why I was able to process, because
yeah.
you have to, like what you said, it, you don't even know if you have processes. So when you feel the physicalness of the grief in your body, like go into it, like 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 feel it all the way, and underneath that is your relief. And
Yeah.
and if you're with someone who has that, one of the best things my friend said to me, what's the hardest part? And then I would ask that to you or whoever, like, what is the hardest part about losing your dad, or what is the hardest part about losing? And then you'll find it. And then when you feel that enough times, it will, those waves just get smaller, right?
Mm. Yeah, the whole feel the fear and do it anyway,
Yeah,
right?
you
Like,
have to feel it. You can't avoid it. You can't avoid feeling grief. It will find you, and it
mm,
will hunt you down and find you when you're least expecting it.
mm, it will hunt you down and find you when you are least expecting it. One of the best things I ever heard about grief outside of losing someone, like grieving, losing a job, or some kind of change, and that often we're grieving something that was never really there, because in terms of those life changes, often it's like the signs are there, but we're ignoring them. And like, to your point, like we're just trying to avoid those feelings and feel the feelings, and knowing in our intuition what is actually happening. And then when it happens, then people, get angry, get disappointed. But it's like, are we grieving something that was never really there to begin with, right? Or it was just not what we thought it was. And to be able to step back and go, I get to write a new chapter, right? And that's why it's so fun to hear your dating stories, because you're like, I've had the best, and now I get to write a new chapter, and my standard is high. We don't get our goals, we get our standards. So I can have fun if it isn't my standard, so I'm not attached to it. Like, that's the
Exactly.
best. You're such a badass. I freaking love you.
Thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity, and I look forward to getting to know everyone in the community. And thanks for all you do for all of us. You're just always growing and on the cutting edge. And yeah, and I'm sorry about your dad. It
Oh,
sounds like you guys had a special bond.
we did. We did. And I keep thinking, so many people in our age cohort, they have aging parents, and just saying it's hard, right? Like, it is hard. And the day before he passed, we were on a Google Meet, and he was like, Susan, I'm like, Daddy, he was always like, what are your goals today? What'd you learn today? And I'm like, what are your goals today? What'd you learn today? He's like, oh, I'm going to play chess, and I'm going to art class, and and then he got up in the night and he died. And, I, even though he was 84 years old, so we know it's inevitable. It's not the same situation as Jeff. It's that, you know, that, someone said to me, well, he was 84. And I'm like, that doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Like, you know, it doesn't matter. It's still, there's the loss, right? So,
Exactly.
yeah. Erin, I love you so much. And for everyone watching, drop comments. Hopefully this has been helpful. I know one person already messaged just like, Thank you for your vulnerability. We're all going through something, whether, you've lost someone close to you, or you're like Erin, that's the best advice. Don't say, what do you need? Just freaking show up and do stuff. Like, just show up, cut the grass, shovel snow. I'm looking out at snow-covered mountains, so I'm gonna think about, whatever it is, just show up, bring the casserole, do whatever, but just like, I think that what we all need, everyone's going through something, and we all need to step up and be there for someone, because we never know when it's going to be our turn to have someone come over and shovel our snow, right? So,
Exactly.
yes, Wendy's calling.
Aw, aw, look at all these comments.
Aw.
Yes. Yeah, and I have 3 women. There's a picture on my story. If you look at my Facebook story right now, there's 3 of us. We called we went out Widow Wednesdays. We'd go every Wednesday out for drinks and chats, and so there's, no matter what you're going through, you're definitely not alone. There's lots of people who you can connect with. You have to just reach out. And thank you, Susan. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. We'll do it again, and we'll do stories of dating from the edge. I've
Yeah.
already
I've already learned so much. I'm learning all about attachment styles, and who knows, maybe I'll be a future dating coach for 50-year-olds, because I'm learning a lot.
Oh, yeah, girl, we could do a panel. I'll moderate, because I'm obviously not dating, but I got some girls for our panel, and they have stories.
Exactly.
All right, everyone. Love you all. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.